if you are one of the millions of people pacing around your living room at 11 p.m. trying to hit exactly 10,000 steps before midnight, you are, well, you're likely sacrificing your sleep for a 1965 marketing slogan.
Yeah, that's entirely true.
I mean, look down at your wrist right now, or think about that little notification that pops up on your phone every evening.
Right, the one with the little fireworks animation.
Exactly. Congratulating you for hitting your daily step goal. We are just constantly nudged, tracked, and, gamified toward this one specific magical number.
It really has become a foundational rule of modern health culture.
It has. It's deeply embedded in our fitness trackers, workplace wellness programs, and even public health guidelines. But today, we're going to strip away all that hype.
Absolutely.
We have a stack of clinical research in front of us for this deep dive, and our mission is to look purely at the physiological mechanics at play here.
Right, no motivational guru energy today.
Yeah, no rah-rah cheerleading. We just want to find the most efficient, science-backed target for your daily movement. Okay, let's unpack this. Is this 10,000 number actually based on human biology, or did it come from somewhere else entirely?
It came from a Japanese marketing campaign.
Wait, really? A marketing campaign?
Yeah. Ahead of the 1964 Tokyo Olympics, there was this massive cultural push for better health and fitness in Japan.
Makes sense with the Olympics and all.
Right. So capitalizing on that momentum, a company released a pedometer the following year in 1965, and they called it the Manpokai.
Manpokai.
Yeah, and translated directly into English, Manpokai literally means 10,000 step meter.
Oh, wow.
The character for 10,000 even looks somewhat like a person walking. It was just a catchy round number that looked fantastic in advertisements.
So it gave consumers a clear, singular target,
But it was absolutely not derived from epidemiological medical research or, clinical trials analyzing human metabolic needs, nothing like that.
It is wild. It's kind of like finding out the food pyramid was drawn by an ad agency.
Yeah, pretty much.
I mean, you build your whole life, your daily routine, your entire guilt complex around this metric, and it was just a product name from the mid-20th century.
What's fascinating here is that the scientific research into step counts came decades later. Scientists essentially had to design massive longitudinal studies retroactively.
Just to evaluate a marketing target.
Exactly. To evaluate a target that had already cemented itself in the global public consciousness, the medical community had to ask whether this arbitrary number people were obsessing over actually correlated to tangible health outcomes.
I imagine people listening right now are wondering if their daily walking habit is based on a total illusion.
Oh, well, the data doesn't suggest walking is useless. Not at all.
Right.
It just suggests the math is fundamentally different than what the marketing promised.
Okay, that's reassuring. So what does the math actually look like?
Well, the clinical evidence broadly and emphatically supports daily walking as a powerful metabolic intervention. However, the relationship between the steps you take and the physiological benefits you reap follows what we call a dose-response curve.
A dose-response curve.
Yeah, and the shape of that curve completely dismantles the whole 10,000 steps or bust mentality.
Let's visualize that dose-response curve for a second. It's kind of like filling a car's gas tank, right?
It's a good way to look at it.
Like going from empty at 2,000 steps to half full at 7,000 steps gets the engine running optimally.
Right.
But trying to squeeze in more gas after the tank is full at 8,000 steps just spills over with no real biological benefit.
That captures the nonlinear nature of the data perfectly. There was a major 2020 cohort study by St. Maurice and colleagues. They tracked 4,840 U.S. adults over several years, looking specifically at cardiovascular mortality risk and all-cause mortality.
And what did they find?
The researchers found that as daily steps rise from a sedentary baseline of about 4,000 up to the 7,000 to 8,000 range, the risk of all-cause mortality drops by a staggering 50 to 65%.
A 65% reduction in mortality risk just by reaching 7,000 steps.
Yes, exactly.
That is a massive return on investment for relatively low-intensity movement.
It really is, and the clinical literature is incredibly consistent on this point. But the critical finding from the St. Maurice study is what happens after that threshold.
After the 8,000 steps?
Right. Above 8,000 steps, the mortality benefit curve flattens out considerably.
Oh, I see.
The researchers observed minimal additional benefit in dropping mortality risk when participants moved from 8,000 to 12,000 steps.
So the absolute largest health return comes from moving the least active people.
Precisely.
Like those getting only 2,000 to 4,000 steps a day.
Yeah.
Getting them up to that 6,000 to 8,000 range.
Yeah. Going from 3,000 steps to 7,000 steps is the actual lifesaver.
While grinding out those extra steps from 8,000 to 10,000 at night is essentially just metabolic extra credit.
Exactly. The difference between 8,000 and 10,000 steps is metabolically minor compared to the sheer physiological shift of getting off the couch in the first place. The primary driver of these baseline health benefits isn't tied to aggressive, sweat-inducing workouts. It's actually driven by incidental steps.
If 7,000 steps is the actual ceiling for longevity, I'm trying to picture what those steps actually look like in a daily routine. Because if I'm just, shuffling to the coffee machine or pacing while I'm on a phone call or walking from my car to the grocery store,
Right.
how does my body even register that low-grade movement as a metabolic intervention?
So those incidental steps are the primary engine of a biological mechanism called NEAT.
Neat.
Yeah, NEAT, which stands for non-exercise activity thermogenesis.
Okay, so what exactly does that cover?
NEAT encompasses all the energy your body expends that is not sleeping, not eating, and not intentional structured exercise.
It's not a 45-minute cycling class.
No, not the cycling class or a dedicated run. It is the micro movements.
Like what?
Walking around the office, fidgeting at your desk, maintaining your posture against gravity, or even just gesturing with your hands while you talk.
Okay, so NEAT is essentially like the background apps draining your phone's battery.
Oh, I like that analogy.
Yeah, like you aren't actively opening them or consciously using them, but because they are constantly running in the background, they account for a massive chunk of your total daily energy drain.
Exactly. And the variance in those background apps between different people is just staggering.
Really? How so?
The neurological drive to engage in spontaneous movement varies wildly from person to person.
Okay.
In highly sedentary individuals, NEAT might only account for roughly 200 kilocalories of energy expenditure a day.
That's practically nothing.
Right. But in highly active non-exercisers, people who are naturally restless, who pace constantly, who stand rather than sit,
Yeah.
NEAT can burn over 1,000 kilocalories a day.
Wait, a 1,000-calorie variance purely from subconscious background movement.
Yes.
That completely shatters the fast metabolism myth.
It really does.
You always hear people say they have a naturally slow basal metabolic rate while they watch a coworker eat whatever they want without gaining an ounce.
And we always assume it's some genetic lottery, right?
Yeah, exactly. Like involving their thyroid or their resting metabolism.
Very often, the gap between those two individuals lives almost entirely in their invisible NEAT levels.
Wow.
The person maintaining their weight effortlessly might simply have a central nervous system that promotes constant micro-movements.
Resulting in hundreds of extra calories burned without a single drop of sweat.
Exactly.
Which means the modern built environment is practically designed to destroy our NEAT.
Oh, absolutely.
We've engineered a world of drive thrusts, food delivery, streaming entertainment. Sedentary desk work directly suppresses our evolutionary baseline for incidental movement.
It's a huge problem.
In a way, those step trackers we wear aren't really fitness devices at all.
What do you mean?
They're just behavioral interventions we invented to artificially compensate for the occupational sitting we've forced ourselves into.
That's a great way to put it. The complete absence of incidental movement in modern life is a drastic, sudden shift from human evolutionary norms. We are designed to constantly interact with our environment.
Here's where it gets really interesting.
Okay.
Because if NEAT can burn up to 1,000 calories a day, the logical assumption is that if you just forcefully hit your step goal, the pounds will automatically melt off.
Right. It feels like simple math.
Yeah, but the body's internal accounting system is far more stubborn than a simple calories in, calories out spreadsheet, isn't it?
Highly stubborn. We have to separate the concept of metabolic walking from weight loss walking.
Okay, break that down for me.
Let's look at the exact caloric math of hitting that famous 10,000 step target. Walking 10,000 steps covers approximately 7 to 8 kilometers for an average stride.
Right.
If you walk that at a typical pace of 4 to 5 kilometers per hour, you are burning roughly 300 to 500 kilocalories, depending on your body mass, efficiency of movement, and the terrain.
So if someone is trying to maintain their weight on the standard 2,000 calorie a day diet, those steps represent about 15 to 25% of their total daily energy expenditure.
Yes.
On paper, that sounds incredibly substantial for weight management.
On paper, yes, it does. But for weight loss specifically, walking alone is rarely sufficient as a primary intervention.
Because it's easier to just not eat the 400 calories.
Partly, yes. It's simply much more efficient to create a caloric deficit through dietary restriction, but more importantly, The human body is highly adaptive.
Okay.
It actively resists the sudden increase in energy expenditure through a mechanism known as adaptive thermogenesis.
Oh, I've actually felt this.
Really?
Yeah. On days I do a massive morning hike or a long run, I find myself completely glued to the couch by 3 p.m.
Right.
I always thought it was just being lazy, but my nervous system is actively shutting down my spontaneous movement to hoard calories, isn't it?
That is adaptive thermogenesis in perfect action. When you suddenly increase your physical activity, say, by mandating 10,000 steps a day when your baseline was 3,000,
Right.
your hypothalamus registers the increased energy output. To protect itself from perceived starvation, it orchestrates a series of physiological downgrades to partially offset those calories burned.
Downgrades like what?
Well, it might subtly drop your resting heart rate. It might alter hunger hormones like leptin and ghrelin to increase your appetite.
Right.
Or, exactly as you experienced, subconsciously decrease your NEAT. You fidget less, you slouch more, you take the elevator instead of the stairs later in the day.
So the body balances the spreadsheet.
Exactly.
You force it to burn 400 calories walking, so it closes down a few background apps to save 200 calories elsewhere.
That's exactly what happens.
This raises an obvious question for you listening. If walking is subject to adaptive thermogenesis and isn't a magic bullet for fat loss, why are we prioritizing these 7,000 to 8,000 steps?
Because the true superpower of walking isn't fat loss at all. No. It is the drastic improvement of metabolic risk factors independent of any changes in body weight. Walking physically alters your internal biochemistry.
I see.
The repetitive muscle contractions required for walking actively clear glucose from your bloodstream.
Okay.
This improves your insulin sensitivity, it lowers your blood pressure by increasing vascular elasticity, and it improves your lipid profiles.
So you're getting healthier internally.
Yes, all of these profound metabolic shifts happen even if the scale doesn't move a single pound.
That is a vital distinction to make. You can fundamentally upgrade your internal machinery without changing the external shell.
Precisely.
People get incredibly discouraged when their step tracking doesn't result in a smaller waistline. And they often just abandon the habit entirely.
Which is such a shame.
They view it as a failure because they are measuring the wrong metric, completely missing the unseen cardiovascular and metabolic benefits happening beneath the surface.
Separating metabolic health from weight loss is the most crucial mental shift a person can make for their long-term health. The absence of weight loss simply does not equal the absence of health benefits. Your insulin receptors are still becoming more responsive. Your endothelial health is still improving.
Okay, so if the primary benefit of walking is metabolic health, rather than sheer calorie burning, then the temporal aspect, like how we distribute those steps throughout the day,
Yes.
that must be just as vital as the total volume of steps we take.
It is arguably more vital.
Really?
To understand why, we have to look at the physical reality of sedentary behavior.
Okay, let's look at it.
In clinical terms, sedentary behavior is not merely the absence of exercise. It is a specific, active physiological stressor.
Wait, sitting is a stressor.
Yes. It's caused by extended seated or recumbent posture with minimal muscle activation.
So when we talk about prolonged sitting, we aren't just talking about a lack of calorie burn. We're talking about postural hypoxia.
Exactly.
And looking at the cellular mechanics of what happens to our tissues when we sit in a chair for hours on end is terrifying.
It is. When you sit, the mechanical pressure of your body weight compresses the tissues in your lower half.
Like your legs.
Right, specifically the large leg musculature and the surrounding adipose tissue. This physical compression flattens the local capillaries.
Which cuts off the blood flow.
Drastically reduces it, yeah. And this reduction in circulation cuts off the oxygen supply to those compressed cells.
So it's literally depriving your own tissues of oxygen. It's exactly like putting a harsh kink in a garden hose.
That's a perfect analogy.
You fold the hose, the physical pressure stops the water flow,
Yeah.
and everything downstream just dries up.
And when human tissues are deprived of oxygen and sheer blood flow for extended periods, it triggers a cascade of local metabolic dysfunction.
What happens to the cells?
Well, the endothelial cells lining your blood vessels rely on the physical friction, the sheer stress of flowing blood to remain healthy and produce nitric oxide.
Okay.
When you kink the hose and that flow stops, the cells experience oxidative stress. Your immune system actually recognizes this as localized tissue distress.
Like an injury.
Exactly. So it responds by infiltrating the area with macrophages.
Right.
And those macrophages then release inflammatory cytokines, things like IL-6 and TNF-alpha.
So sitting isn't a neutral state of rest.
Not at all.
It is actively creating a continuous state of low-grade endothelial inflammation. You are essentially suffocating your own leg tissue, and your body is sounding an inflammatory alarm in response.
If we connect this to the bigger picture, the human body absolutely requires frequent low-level physical interruptions to restore that blood flow.
To unkink the hose.
Right, and keep its inflammatory responses in check. This cellular reality fundamentally changes how we should evaluate our daily step counts.
Because if I sit at my desk for 9 hours straight, accumulating all that localized tissue compression,
Yeah.
pooling those inflammatory markers and developing insulin resistance in my legs, and then I try to make up for it by going for a furious 60-minute power walk at 7 p.m. to hit my 10,000 steps.
Right.
My body doesn't just forgive those 9 hours in damage, does it?
The clinical data strongly indicates it does not. A single 60-minute bout of exercise at the end of the day cannot fully clear the pooled inflammatory markers or reverse the temporary endothelial dysfunction caused by 8 continuous hours of occlusion.
It's just too late.
It is metabolically inferior to distributing those steps throughout the day. Walking for 10 minutes every 90 minutes provides consistent reperfusion of the tissues.
Even if the total step count at the end of the day is exactly the same.
Even if the step count is identical.
That is fascinating.
You cannot undo prolonged postural hypoxia with one concentrated dose of movement. The goal of daily movement is to frequently interrupt the tissue compression.
Right, you have to continually unkink the garden hose to let the oxygen flow.
Exactly. Restore the shear stress to the blood vessels and prevent the metabolic dysfunction from taking root in the first place.
So what does this all mean? If we synthesize all of this, the origin of the marketing myth, the reality of the dose-response curve capping out around 8,000 steps, the stubbornness of adaptive thermogenesis, and the cellular dangers of postural hypoxia.
That's a lot to process.
It is. How do we translate this into a real-world routine? Let's give the listener one clear, actionable takeaway they can apply this week.
The most immediate takeaway is to stop stressing over hitting exactly 10,000 steps.
Yeah.
And drop the mindset that 9,500 is a failure. The biology clearly tells a different story.
Right.
If you are currently averaging 3,000 steps, your absolute priority is getting to that 7,000 step threshold.
Because that's where the magic happens.
That is where you capture the vast majority of the mortality risk reduction and metabolic benefits. And if you're already hitting 8,000, recognize that the benefit curve has flattened.
You don't need to pace around your kitchen at midnight for extra credit.
No, you don't. But crucially, you need to implement the 10 and 90 rule.
The 10 and 90 rule.
Yes. Focus less on the total volume at the end of the day and more on the frequency of movement. Get up and walk for 10 minutes every 90 minutes.
Okay.
Do not let yourself sit continuously for 4 hours at a time. Break up the postural hypoxia. Keep the blood flowing to those tissues.
So distributing 7,000 steps throughout your day in frequent, small bursts is a far superior metabolic intervention.
Superior to sitting all day and panic walking 10,000 steps before bed. Absolutely.
It's about consistency of movement and treating your steps as a way to maintain biological maintenance throughout the day, rather than a chore to be checked off a list at night.
Very well said.
I want to leave you with a final thought to mull over today. Think about the physical world we live in right now. Consider how our modern built environment, our offices, our cars, our drive-thrusts, our sprawling suburbs, and our streaming entertainment is engineered almost entirely around minimizing our NEAT.
It really is.
We've actively designed an architectural world that demands we sit still, which suppresses our evolutionary biology. Which makes you wonder, are our hyper-advanced fitness trackers and daily step goals actually making us fitter? Or are they just a technological band-aid we've invented to survive an environment that no longer requires us to move? The next time your watch buzzes on your wrist, remember, it's not a magical marketing threshold demanding your obedience. It's just a vital biological reminder to unkink the hose.